Alien Romulus is a fantastic film directed by Fede Alvarez. I know it just opened up to over $100 million at the box office with a budget of around $80 million. But there's something I need to address more than ever. The popcorn bucket war. You've lost. You could buy a xenomorph head. You could also buy a face hugger in a containment unit that glows green. But what did AMC come up with? It's a face hugger hugging the popcorn bucket. Now give us all your money. But it is interesting to see how movie theaters are taking on this new life with popcorn buckets. Well, let's go ahead and transition back into Alien Romulus. Welcome back to Buddy's Big Screen. I'm a huge fan of this movie. I was able to go see it in IMAX and was absolutely floored with how amazing it looked. I think Fede Alvarez does a great job at directing this film, and he clearly had a vision for what he wanted out of this film. Especially what got me really interested was the fact that Fede Alvarez was inspired by Alien Isolation.
So we went to every possible medium, and to the comic books and novelizations to the games. But I think Alien Isolation was a big inspiration just because it was not just a great game, but also something that showed how scary it could be, you know? Because there was a premise that I think was kind of a false premise, but it was this idea that the xenomorph was not scary anymore, that it couldn't be scary anymore, that it's been so exposed. And
I think that's great. I was a huge fan of Alien Isolation. I think Prometheus definitely did a lot of things that changes the game for the franchise, and I understand that a lot of lifelong fans are not very keen on what Ridley Scott decided to do when it came to the outside lore of the Alien franchise. I'm actually at a point where I am more of a fan than I'm not. I understand the problems and the critiques and criticisms, but at the end of the day, I think it's quite interesting what the narrative is like changing into as a whole, and I'm into it, but if you're not, I think that's totally understandable. In which this film seems to be the Force Awakens for the Alien franchise because it retreads on Alien and Aliens. That's one of the bigger criticisms I've seen of the film, and I have to say this. I definitely think you're right. To a degree. I think the conversation is worth having. However, I think Alien Romulus does a much better job at making a film that stands on its own and has its own legs compared to something like The Force Awakens. I think that comes with the cast, the setting, and the story. Is there a lot of inspiration elements of Romulus that are from Alien and Aliens? Yes. Setting us up, showing us that this world still sucks, and showing how people are used time and time again for the betterment of the company. I also think this film introduces another great android with David Johnson as Andy, who is absolutely the standout performance in this entire movie. Same with Michael Fassbender as David from Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which I haven't seen Covenant yet. It's on my list. Full transparency, I haven't seen that one yet. I plan on seeing it soon, so don't worry. Don't leave me any hate comments, okay? I'm getting to it. There's a lot of movies out there, okay? But we're talking about this one. I was a huge fan of David Johnson as Andy. I thought his performance was phenomenal through and through. And along with that is Kaylee Spaney. Oh my gosh, the character of Rain is so interesting in this movie. The action she does, leading star, I absolutely adored her. And when that scene happens, I'm trying to negate spoilers, but when she has to navigate around the zero gravity section, that put her on the list for me. I went, oh yeah. This movie is cooking, this moment is cooking, and I can't wait to see what else this actor does. I know that there are a couple other things that are on my list, but I'm definitely going to get to those sooner now because, man, that performance along with David Johnson's performance, 2 thumbs up. And also, this film has some of the funniest line deliveries that are in the trailers. I'll probably put a clip in here.
I'm not playing around, there's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know, there's just something in the fucking water.
O cholera, czy to Freddy Fazbear? Oh.
And I love it. I think there's a great blending of tones here. It's definitely a mix between Alien and Aliens in a lot of ways, with putting the franchise back in its roots of horror and the atmosphere and what it's like to actually be in a closed environment with a xenomorph and how scary that actually is. That is so well done in the set design, the production, the lighting, actually having wonderful backlights, amazing cinematography. I'm not talking like this is the greatest thing of all time, but cinematography needs to complement the vision for the rest of the film. I think it is absolutely beautiful in this movie. Seeing it on IMAX, I was floored. I thought it looked beautiful. I thought the lighting was great. The color grading was very complimentary. I love whenever the frame would just get filled with that red light, or it would have that underglow from the ship. Oh my gosh, it keeps you so engaged the entire time. There's a good amount of action in here that is well directed, super solid. A lot of practical elements were used here, and that's phenomenal. A lot of the makeup, the actual animatronic for the xenomorph in this film is unlike any other one I've ever seen. It is amazing. The actual bringing us back to the horror roots of this franchise really, really works for me.
I just wanted my cheese.
I was a huge fan. I really enjoyed the story as well, and I think someone like Isabella Merced as Kay in this movie is an underrated performance as well, because when you talk about like the final girl aspect of horror movies, there's always a scream connected to that. Kaylee Spaney doesn't quite get the screaming moment. That goes to Isabella Merced. When that goes on digital, her scream in this movie, when you're going into a horror movie and you expect that iconic, like some character's gonna scream in this movie, and that's gonna be something that sticks with you as an audience member, they absolutely nailed it in this role, and absolutely for me. So a lot of the tone worked. When I sat in the audience with a bunch of packed individuals in this IMAX theater, and there's a moment in this movie where something happens that we've never seen in the franchise before. When I tell you, that moment got everyone in the theater to go, oh God, or to have some sort of visceral reaction. I mean it. And it was awesome. It was so cool to have an audience actually react to something like this that wasn't like a superhero cameo or something. This moment actually scared people. It made them uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable. And I loved every second of it. I think this movie is great. Down to the performances, the writing, the directing, the set design, cinematography, the music, the score, the sound design. Everything hones into what Alien as a franchise has always been. And I think Fede Alvarez does a fantastic job of wrapping it up in a nice bow. And with it having the big success that it's happening in theaters, oh, I'm begging for a new Alien vs. Predator movie that they're trying to pitch here. I want more Alien movies that are like this, not carbon copies. Keep doing unique things, but keeping us back in the roots of that atmosphere. More of that, please. Now, I need to talk about my biggest problem with this movie. Can we stop resurrecting dead people? It's stupid. When there's other ways of making a character come back in a different way because you want to have another... I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But when you're trying to avoid doing something like that, like you want to have fans have a moment where they go, oh, I recognize this person. Oh my gosh, that's crazy that the company would reuse someone like this. That would make sense inside the universe. But that individual has passed away. Use somebody else. Just use somebody else who is alive. On an IMAX screen, when you're getting these close-ups of what's clearly a dead person, it's gross. I hate it. I can't stand it. It's never good. I don't care. There's a difference when it comes to de-aging an actor who's alive and performing versus using this. It's gross and it's weird and there's no defense for it. I don't care. That took me out of the film. It makes me really sad because I think the rest of the film is super strong. While some may not like the lore and actually exploring more of the stuff Ridley Scott has set up from Prometheus, and I assume more from Alien Covenant, I think this franchise is back on track. I'm super excited for the future of it. I want Fede Alvarez to do more. I know that there's people out there that are not a huge fan of this movie, and honestly, I understand why. There's a lot of good reasons for that, but coming from my perspective, I'm like, this was a great return to form. It isn't exactly like the Force Awakens conversation. This feels like a more unique film that really can stand on its own. Wrapping things up in a nice little bow here with this review, I was a huge fan of Alien Romulus. I loved everything about it and the storytelling, but stop bringing dead people back to life. It's gross. It's gross and awful. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.